Hello, and welcome to our next installment of the Homeland Security Today Awards Profiles in Excellence. We're very excited today to introduce you to Bridget Pelaez, who is the Assistant Director of Emergency Management at Florida International University. And she's also the Deputy Commander for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services National Disaster Medical Systems Trauma Critical Care Team. I couldn't even get through that in one breath. This is part of Homeland Security Today's awards because we weren't able to celebrate these people in person, feed them shrimp and lobster and crab and let them know how much the community appreciates all they do. So instead, we've been interviewing them and frankly have found it to be really meaningful to be able to introduce them to all of you and introduce the work they do to our community. So Bridget, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. So your nomination was pretty stellar. Your folks love you, and they went on and on about all the amazing things you do. So you do serve those two official capacities, but you've done a lot more than that, like developing the Stop the Bleed program and training more than 10,000 faculty and staff for Stop the Bleed along FIU police. You've really devoted your life to improving healthcare preparedness and response in South Florida. Tell us a little bit more about the Stop the Bleed program.
It's a program here at FIU that we started because we realized that there was vulnerability within higher education institutions. So realizing that vulnerability and that gap, I joined forces with Florida International University Police to create a training program that was didactic and field operational, meaning that we don't just talk about it and show a PowerPoint, but we actually, at the end of the training program, come in the same building that they train and that they work in 8 hours a day, and come in with an intruder that acts as an active shooter, so that they can actually go out there and use the training and put it to work. And we can fix any mistakes that they may have had in their environment. So if they're hiding in the wrong spot, if they're not applying a tourniquet effectively, that we can do something about it. So I bring the nursing background to it, a little bit of tactical medicine into it, and just showing people that you don't need to be so afraid to help somebody in a time of need. If you have the appropriate set of skills, you can really help yourself and help others.
Excellent. So that Stop the Bleed program is really focused on active shooter events when faculty or students have been shot, and it equips your folks to deal with the wounded. Does it deal at all with the actual shooter?
It does deal a little bit with the active shooter, but it also blends itself into an introductory disaster management program. So we like to open people's minds into what mass casualty incidents would be. We don't like to solely just say, this is just active shooter based. This is mass casualty oriented.
Excellent. So it's kind of all hazards.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Well, there's your emergency management background shining through. That's awesome. You also really lead by example, and you've been the director of an all-volunteer critical care response team that deploys field hospitals to disaster-stricken areas nationally and abroad. When do you sleep?
I try not to. It's a waste of time. No. Sleep is very important, but this team is near and dear to my heart. I think that, especially in South Florida, being such a disaster-stricken state, we need to be able to deploy to our local community. The quicker our hospitals can get back up and running, the quicker the community is normalized and more resilient.
That's excellent. So what drives you? Because you seem to have either been driven by some tragedy that happened to you, or what was it that kind of turned you to become such an amazing asset to our country?
I think it's just helping people, but I'm never satisfied with just like one person or hundreds of people. It's thousands of people. So numbers, grit, really just the most vulnerable. I always see and like to focus on the most vulnerable populations, making them a more resilient community, and getting resources where they're most needed. That seems to be, filling that gap, filling that void, and allowing clinicians to become part of conversations that they once weren't a part of. So disaster management typically didn't include clinicians as part of conversations. And I realized really quickly as a nurse that they should definitely have a seat at that table. And if more clinicians were a part of these conversations, then I think that national resiliency and international resiliency would be a solution.
That's just amazing. We keep hearing the discussion of all of the interviews we do and the importance of that collaboration and having a lot of voices at the table during planning, during response. What is your advice for effective collaboration?
I think it's at the end of the day, people and resources. So I wish I had this sexy quote and I don't, but it's I can do anything with the right people and the right resources. And you have to be able to listen to all spectrums of the field. And that sometimes is listening to people that don't have the most experience, but sometimes have the most creative ideas. I like to surround myself with students that are new to the field because sometimes they do bring up vulnerabilities that I wouldn't have seen. And I like to also have conversations with people who are newly retired because they bring up conversations that I wouldn't have thought of that are 20 years removed. So I think it's a mix of grit, it's a mix of vulnerability and passion, but it's being willing to have open conversation and feedback and take criticism, not being afraid to kind of scrape your knees a little bit and make those mistakes.
That is so true. And I love the fact that you are including folks who have done it forever, the retired folks, and young people, because I noticed just even in our job, the needs of some of our older readers and participants versus the kind of the styles and the needs of the young people are very different because of technology. And so being able to listen to all of that really helps you stay on the cutting edge. That's amazing. That's terrific. So one of the things that you're doing now, of course, is dealing with COVID. So talk to us a little bit about your preparations for FIU, for the students, the staff. Like you must be, well, you're not sleeping. You obviously cannot be sleeping.
No, we definitely do sleep. But here at FIU, we're definitely front runners in the community, and we're also giving back to the community. We've been running an FIU Miami COVID-19 test site since April 8th of last year. So it's actually this Wednesday going to be a year since we've been running that test site. To date, we've tested 376,223 Miami-Dade residents. On top of that, we are running a closed vaccination pod at FIU, which is helping us vaccinate our staff, our faculty, our students. And we're in conversations moving forward to see about how we can continue to vaccinate our local community here. We have generated what's called a P3 app, which is Panthers Protecting Panthers. So it allows students to check in on an application before they arrive to campus, which checks in, how are they feeling? Have they been encountered with anybody that has been tested positive for COVID? Do they have any symptoms of COVID? So it allows us to safeguard a community a little bit safer. We have testing sites on campus as well, testing trailers on all campus sites. We have a COVID tracking response team. So any student that has any questions, we can actually have them in line with an epidemiologist and a contact tracing team immediately. We have ambassadors on campus that are, leading the way. If they see something out of line, if a student has questions, hey, where can I get a mask? We have mask vending machines that are available to students. We have housing, different resources that are available to students. This is a trying time for students who may need financial resources as well. And then job experience, especially in emergency management. I think internships need to continue, in-person internships, so that people can learn how to become leaders in this field through a difficult time. I mean, this is an emerging infectious disease. We're learning a lot about this, but I think that especially for the future of disaster managers, now's when they need to learn how to become more resilient and how to plan to protect the future of what our nation is going to encounter.
That is incredible. I really hope that you take the time to write a piece for HS Today about your preparations, because it sounds like you are, head and shoulders above many other universities. My daughter's actually in university, and while they've done some communications, they are nowhere near what you're doing, nowhere near it.
I think a lot of it too is sometimes just having fun. Like in the beginning of it, we were running out of protective.
Only you would say this is fun. I just am going to put that out there.
Probably. In the beginning of it, we were running out of PPE, and I'm a little bit of a fanatic about 3D printers. So I reached out to MBUS, which is our Miami Beach Urban Studios design studio. And I said, hey, can we use your 3D printers to potentially make 3D printed face shields? Because at the time we learned that 3D printed, face shields in general would protect or elongate the life of a mask. And we 3D printed face shields and sent those out to local hospitals, healthcare providers, and small businesses. So sometimes it's not something that's such a big step or such a big application or a big robust program. It is sometimes a creative, innovative project that we allow students to become a part of so that they can help safeguard, maybe just one individual or maybe just one small business, but it's a step forward, right?
Absolutely. And, it all smacks of FEMA's whole community resilience, because what you're talking about is reaching out to everyone in the community and gathering their contributions. So that's incredible. You've also been a real champion for diversity and inclusion, and you have engaged with the LGBTQ community. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what you've done and then your advice for others? Because I know that many want to be, inclusive, and they want to know how, and sometimes it's a little daunting. So it sounds like you can tell us what to do on pretty much every front.
Well, so I think it's important to keep in mind the environment that I come from, and being LGBT myself, and coming from an environment where I've experienced a little bit of bullying myself. As a nurse and as a healthcare provider, it's important to understand your patients. And I realized very quickly in nursing school that diversity wasn't well taught. So I partnered with an organization by the name of Aqua Foundation, which is an LBT nonprofit organization in Miami. And they have a mentor-mentee program. And what they do is they pair mentees with successful leaders in the community to show young LBT women that you can be successful and also be LBT, and that there's a future for you out there in the community that can lead you in the right direction. Because sometimes you can go down the wrong path, especially if you've been bullied or if you don't necessarily know successful LBT women out there. And sometimes I like to say that there's a lot of these abbreviations or a lot of the different colors that can sort of confuse people, but at the end of the day, we're all Homo sapien, right? So for me, it was important to engage this nonprofit organization with nursing schools to have diversity training in the healthcare platform. Because as we start to engage in healthcare in 2021 and 2022, 2023, patients deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And healthcare practitioners deserve to learn about diversity so that as we encounter patients in the disaster spectrum or on a normal day-to-day basis, we can treat each other with that sense of normalcy and without any hesitation. Because when there's hesitation, there's a little bit of awkwardness, and there doesn't need to be awkwardness if we have these awkward conversations in a room full of experts that can say, well, this is the right way to approach, let's say, two mothers that have a baby. Maybe they don't want to be known as mom and mom. Maybe one wants to be mommy and the other one doesn't want to be mommy. So I think it's a phenomenal organization, but more so than anything, it's a platform that provides individuals with a safe place to be, a safe place to grow, and a safe place to learn. And it's an advocacy program that I'm very fond of. And I think it's important just to say that I am a safe zone or a safe leader to come to for any students that may be having issues.
Well, it looks like you should be winning another award next year too. So, just get used to us bugging you and sending you awards. I see the award back there on the table, so it's nice to see. So what has been one of your proudest moments I'll say in the last 2 years, because it sounds like you have a lot of them. So I'll limit the time frame.
Proudest moment. Probably deploying as deputy commander for the first time with my federal team for COVID. It was bittersweet leaving the testing site behind and leaving my hometown during COVID, but walking into another city and state, which was a border state, knowing the situation that they were into and converting a floor into an intensive care unit and representing the trauma critical care team on behalf of HHS and leading that mission and seeing my nurses and doctors really do a solid 2 weeks of work and seeing some patients, be able to rehabilitate and show the hospital leadership that was fatigued that they can do a great job and that fatigue doesn't need to be the continuum of that process, and that resiliency can be part of their process if they just focused on the overall mission, and if they took a little bit of the tools that we provided to them, that COVID didn't need to be the end all be all for them, that they were stronger than COVID. So I think going out the door as the deputy commander for the first time with my team and representing the federal team and my nation was a big win for me, and I was just very humbled by that experience.
That's incredible. Yes, you are certainly the example of what's best in our nation. So it's just so good to have a chance to talk with you. I usually ask what the worst moment was too, but I don't think I want to ask you that question. I think that your experience and your work on behalf of your students and the university has really been tremendous. And so I think your life has kind of been filled with really proud moments, unless you have a lesson learned. Let me ask you that. Is there a lesson that you've learned that you'd like to pass on to others?
I think the lesson learned, especially this year for any leader, is, we usually say, well, I'll rest after the deployment. I'll rest when this is over. This has been a marathon of a response. And to any leader out there, I think we've all learned this year that we have to find time to breathe through this chaos. And for all of us, complacency is going to be the killer in this. And we must not get complacent. We must remember that people are relying on us. We must hold on to the grit that we have and remember that there is still passion in this. I'm still in the ring fighting this thing, and I will continue to fight until this is over. So the one lesson for me is finding balance in small things, whether that be gardening or, the one TV show that makes me smile. It happens to be older movies, which is really funny. I'm watching like Mighty Ducks and Cool Runnings, like old movies,
but it's good. They're all free, right? They're free on Amazon instead of having to pay for them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the one lesson learned is this isn't I'll rest when it's over. You need to find time to take breaths in the middle of it. And that's the lesson learned for me, because this isn't over and I'm not going to be over until it's done.
That's amazing. And I really want to thank you for putting that message out, because I think before COVID, many times when you talked about balancing life and family, you get a lot of eye rolls, you're like, okay, whatever. But now I talk to responder after responder who says, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And as you said, complacency, and we're seeing it every day in the numbers on COVID. As soon as we kind of get complacent, you get the spikes in the numbers. And so we do have to stick together as a nation. We have to follow the advice and leadership of people like you, and certainly fight complacency wherever we can, because it's, dealing in homeland security. I mean, that's kind of everything. So it's kind of exhausting and it's kind of never ending. But the truth is, it's exhausting and never ending, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's just the mission.
Yeah,
So
I have a quote in the command post that says, just because you're over it doesn't mean it's over.
that's so true. That's your quote. There you go. I love it. Well, I just want to thank you on behalf of really the country and certainly of Florida for all of your commitment and hard work and dedication to the citizens of Florida and the students at FIU, certainly. You are a role model and example for so many, and I hope that you will engage with us in the future, perhaps to do some webinars, and certainly continue to make your wonderful voice heard. So thank you. Congratulations again on your mission award. I'm so glad we found you. I'm so glad your nominators took the time, and it's just really a pleasure to know you.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll talk later and talk soon. Take care, and thank you.
Thank you.